I'm one of the advocates that any business that the customer cannot fund in Africa, on the long term, it's going to be a problem. So for me, the sweetest source of funding is revenue.
Today Africa Podcast is a podcast series where we interview African entrepreneurs and professionals and share the stories behind their businesses. In each interview, we ask how they got started, how they grew, and how they run their business today. The stories are inspiring and also provide specific advice and insight into starting a business. By sharing these stories, we want to help others get started.
My name is Ifeoma. I run a female-focused fintech company called Shecluded. We provide access to credit for female entrepreneurs in Nigeria and in some part of Africa.
What inspired you to start your company and why the focus on women?
My dad died when I was 9, and my mom was 27 with 4 kids. And she had to become a
Okay.
businesswoman. And in that journey, I quickly realized that she was turning down opportunities because she couldn't get credit. She was considered high risk.
Okay.
And very quickly, when I grew up, I was working in a seed funding company, and I quickly realized that women were not getting funding. So for me, it was a problem because 50% of Nigerian population are women. And if you don't get funding, they will always be small. So I decided to say, you know what? Why don't I start a company that the only customer is female and see what it will do? And that's just what I did. I just said, you know what? If I start a company and the only customer is female, I'll think about smart, creative ways to reach them. And that's what I did.
What challenges have you faced as a female founder and CEO in the fintech space, and how did you overcome them?
Challenges that I faced. One is, it's not peculiar to women. It's for as a non-technical founder, I had to quickly upskill in some technical areas, at least to be able to deliver the milestones that I want at different times.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
one. Another challenge that I faced, was the fact that at the time when we started Shecluded, the whole women thing had not started. So proving to people that just starting a company focused on women was a bit new at the time. So convincing them, talking to them was a challenge. But I think that one thing that worked and made me successful was that I also put in my own money. Like we proved and we got our first 100 clients with my own funding, with my own savings. So I think after a
Okay.
while, it was just easy for people to see our traction and all. As with any other entrepreneur in Nigeria, talents, unclear government policies, and funding.
Can you share insight on how you raised your capital for your venture? Because from my little research, I found out that funding in Africa is a very big issue, a challenge. So, what other strategies did you use to raise funds for your venture?
So I'm one of the advocates that any business that the customer cannot fund in Africa, on the long term, it's going to be a problem. So for me, the sweetest source of funding is revenue.
Okay.
So we started generating revenue, and I started by pitching to. The first person I invested in me, I worked with him together at a company I used to work with before
Okay.
he left to start his own company. And when I was pitching to him, he said, "Yeah, my sisters. I found out that my sisters struggled to also get credit, and that's why I did that investment." Going to your network, the first network. So it means that you have to be very intentional to make sure that you work in places that your network, or you need to network properly to make sure that your network is able to link you up and put in good words for you with the people that you intend to raise funds for. I think that helped me. So my
Okay.
first seed investment came from someone I worked with. My second seed investment came from a friend that met somebody that said, "Hey, I want to invest or do something like this." And she said, "Hey, hi, I know somebody." So yeah,
Okay.
those two people. Then my third investor, I worked with him also in PwC. So
Okay.
now thinking about it, people that invested in my company are people that either worked with. So the two of them, I worked with them directly. The other one person, somebody that I know professionally, did an intro, and she said that's fine. She wanted to do something like this.
What do you look at for when granting women or business owned by women access to growth loans?
We have a checklist of criteria that we look at, including like how much they make, their debt to income ratio, alternative data, which association are they in, how is their business, how much support can we give them accept access to credit. So over time, we've been
Okay.
able to narrow down to what our ideal customer looks like, and it's it's a continuous iteration and learning process, especially with the way that the Nigerian economy is always unstable. So we find ourselves always refining who we want to lend to at different points, just in response to the
Okay.
macro economics that is happening in Nigeria and how it's impacting business owners.
Beside the growth loans, which other services do you people provide?
So we do a number of upskilling activities. In fact, we've done so many. We've done two major ones, one with GIZ and another one with CFYA. GIZ is Germany and CFYA is Netherlands. So what makes us special is the fact that apart from giving these women capacity, we can actually give them money. So a lot of
Okay.
people give women capacity and no money. We can give you access to capacity and money. We also have a co-working space that they come in, hang out with their peers, and just share ideas. They also come in here to make videos about the things that are important to them, blah, blah, blah. So
Okay.
we sort of like make it in a way that we want to be able to provide the both the soft and the hard things that we think that they need to be able to do well or do better.
How do you approach your marketing, and can you highlight the tactics that have been, successful for your business?
So for us, I know that when I see a lot of people marketing, I'm usually in awe. I'm like, gosh, you put all this money in marketing. We've been very fortunate in the sense that I think when we started, I learned from Jumia and I think some other tech companies to see that sometimes marketing can stimulate a fake market. And I wanted
Okay.
to know if this was really a need. So the first thing I did was to say, how do I market without any marketing? And I quickly
Okay.
went to Instagram and I learned from I think it was Jason Joko's tweet then that says that I can't remember it, but the strategy was just go for the heads of the homes. Do you get what I mean? So I looked for
Yes.
associations that had a lot of women, and I made sure
Okay.
that I tried to do business and please the head woman. Once I please them, I'm in. So I
Okay.
always look for creative ways to make sure our marketing spend is um, is um, is competitive. I think that's the word. But I mean, now that we've scaled to a certain level, um, we are also thinking about because for marketing, there's also the branding positioning and other things. So at different points, I know that for me, it was first of all, how do I make sure the customer acquisition was low? But at this point, is how do I make sure that our brand is seen as a brand? Do you get what I mean?
Yes. How do you see technology, affecting or impacting the fintech space?
I've seen a lot of people fixated on technology in Nigeria, and just by playing in Nigeria and having been in tech space for the last 7 years or 10 years, I realized that there will just be few technology disruptions that will change the way that people do things. So when
Okay.
we're talking about like the Insta switch, the pay stack, there'll be few of them, but
Okay.
there will always be problems that or technology enabled startups that solve problems. Do you get?
Okay.
So
Yes.
Nigeria is still an informal offline country.
Okay.
And the way that I see it is when I'm thinking about disruption with technology is to say how do everyday community local problems, how do we use technology to enable it and make it more efficient? I feel
Okay.
that those are the only type of technology that will scale in Nigeria. I think when you think about the likes of like um, some of the big POS companies that have come up or that have become big names over time, so you'll see that they just targeted the informal sector, and maybe some of them the thought process was that give them their money quickly, reduce the time it takes them to go to the bank.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
Okay.
So
So
that's practical
yes.
to be able to say how does technology solve everyday problem for the small people that are already informal.
What do you think about the unbanked in Nigeria?
When I think about the unbanked and why they stay unbanked, I think it's because they don't see any need for it. They don't see how it's going to solve their problem or increase their revenue and stuff. And the truth about it is that social cultural barriers and just misinformation might be a bit of it there. But um, aside keeping their money in the bank, which is what they feel that their next door neighbor is doing for them, they don't see any other use of a bank. And I feel that that's where financial literacy comes into play. And just be able to first of all, accept the fact that maybe most of them will never convert, but make sure that a few of them has will convert. I think that what happened with the cash crunch, with the cash swap in 2023, was that a lot of people were forced to go digital, and
Okay.
some of them, I mean, some of them stayed that way, but some of them have gone back to their normal way. Do you get what I mean? So I feel that
Yes.
just saying I want to bank the unbank and going to meet people that have been keeping their money for centuries under their bed and they're happy that I want to bank you is not enough value proposition. It means that we need to find what is value to them, and instead of changing and change the narrative from saying we want to bank the unbank to say that we want to do whatever it is that we find will get them into the banking sector.
What lesson have you learned as an entrepreneur for all these years that you have been, running
Ah,
your company?
what lessons have I learned? One, I feel that the glam of entrepreneurship. So, sometimes when you see my pictures online, is nice and everything, but everyday entrepreneurs that are trying to make a difference in a country like Nigeria, when you see them squeeze money in their hand, okay, like they're really suffering. I think that's the big difference. The glam of entrepreneurship and
Okay.
the type of entrepreneurship is different from the work of entrepreneurship, and the work is
Okay.
real. Do you understand? I think that's one thing
Yes.
that I learned in this journey, and the work is hard. And as in the
Okay.
work, you have to in the work you have to deal with a lot of things that you see are the problem with Nigeria. So, for example, um, I feel that there is dwindling human resources based on the fact that education something happened to our educational system and nobody was paying attention. I feel that um, the business conditions have not improved, and so you see it. So it's like running a business is making me see the effect of how um, the nation affects your doing business. Do you get what I mean? So if you want to,
Yes.
I had a customer, for example, she baked cake. She has been baking cake for the last, 10 years. And
Wow.
I think last year she closed down her business. And when I was talking to her, she said, the floor price went up by 150%, that, some of the things that they used to get went up, and she just noticed that the numbers were not like adding up again, and she just felt, what, instead of trying to mix so many things to do this thing, she just felt that this was the best time for her to try and do something else. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Being a mom is a full-time job. So how do you manage your your work as a mom? and your work as a CEO? How do you manage your time effectively?
So time management, if I should give you a theory answer, it will be theory answer. The truth is that I don't.
Okay.
um, I I think about how do I want to exit and how do I want to exit this world. And I feel that I
Okay.
want to exit this world having given all that I have in different areas, whether as a wife, a mom, different areas of my life that I showed up. I want to do my best. And that includes doing
Okay.
a mom. So I know there's something that my mentor taught me. It says quality sometimes over quantity. So whenever I spend time with my children, I'm very intentional about it. I noticed that I do have a responsibility of bringing people into the world. So I have to pay attention. I mean, sometimes I drop the ball, but I've learned to wake up the next day and say, you know what, today I'm going to do better. So I think that that's it. So
Okay.
I mean, and also there's some opportunities that I see maybe be away for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Sometimes I'll say, oh yeah, I can work with this. Sometimes I'll say, no, 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 I've been away for a long time. So it's always depend on the individual and the circumstances and what you're willing to give. But I notice that most times they give and take stuff. So I always fight for balance. Although that, sometimes I find out that there's no such thing as balance. But to be very, very honest, having a supportive partner, my husband helps me out, like, and he's not very critical when I make mistakes. So having that also helps. And having a nation
Okay.
of people that help you. My sisters, my mom, my friends, my in-laws. Like I see people who just show up for me. So it makes me remember that why it was easy in those days was that the community trains the child and not just the parents. So trying to incorporate that lifestyle intentionally can help.
Maintaining a positive and productive work environment is very crucial. What specific practices have you implemented to foster collaboration and positive culture in your company?
So one is the fact that as a CEO, I think I'm easily accessible. I feel that what that does is just being able to make sure that people have the courage to say their fears, their plans. And I feel that employee employer relationship is a give and take. So, I mean, on my team, I know who wants to travel. I know who wants to, I know who is looking for a husband or not, or who is looking for a wife. So I'm making realize that I also care. I know who wants to be famous. So sometimes I say, hey, you want to be famous, be the face of the company, do this ads, do this thing, or don't do this. I know who wants to write
Okay.
it. So sometimes I intentionally say, hey, because you want to write a book and you're going to be an entrepreneur, I think you should be doing this kind of roles. Do you understand? And I think genuinely
Yeah.
over time, people see it and they
Okay.
like it. Yeah, I think that that's it. But other times it can be tricky, balancing all that and goals.
How are you doing today? And what does the future look like?
The beginning of the year, and I'm very excited about 2024. So yeah, so today I love the fact that we've met some milestones that put us as one of the biggest startups that fund women entrepreneurs. I
Okay.
like the fact that women come into our space and they say one or two things, meet their friends. So we've also been able to provide women somewhere that they feel that is part of their own. Um,
Okay.
do we want to be in the future? We want to be a Pan-African finance company that women entrepreneurs can run to and get the assistance and the financing they need. Not the one that
Okay.
is like audio that is on textbook and is on press releases, but never get to them. But the one that
Okay.
actually. So that's what our future looks like.
What's your advice to women on financial independence?
So every time I hear that independence word, it always feels like um, I don't know what it is, but on owning your financial journey, my advice is that finance is a key part of how is a key part of your journey as a human being, whether as a man or as a woman. So
Okay.
before you outsource it, because I was talking to one lady that was in her 50s or yeah, 59 or 55. And she was telling me, and I said, hey, you've never traveled. She now said yes. And I said, why? I mean, you've had the opportunity. And she said that she thought at some point her husband would take her to travel. And I said, you outsource, I mean, she's divorced though. And I said, you outsource the dream, your ambitions, and your secret thoughts to a guy and you never voiced it out. Now, what if somebody has told you that you can take yourself to travel? And immediately I saw her face light up. And she went to get a passport. She hasn't traveled, but at least she has a passport. Two of our kids went for masters. So being able to tell women that, see, money is a key part of your experience on earth. And you need to
Okay.
figure out quickly how you want to make that money. And one of the easiest way that gives you security is to know that you know how to make it by yourself.
What advice will you give to Africans, especially women who are starting their business?
It looks glamorous, trust me. I see a lot of people say, oh, I saw you here and here and here. And I'm like, gosh, maybe that day it's this, that. But I feel that two is my main advice is to do something that you're passionate about that can make money. You know, when passion and money combined, it keeps you here on the long term.
Okay.
So passion and money. So the passion and money keeps you alive. Then knowing your strength and your weakness helps you know who you need on the team. Do you
Okay.
get? You need to date
Yes.
yourself a lot to know yourself and say, this is what I need and this is what I don't need. I realize that as an entrepreneur, you need to be that very, very clear with yourself. So, I mean, sometimes I don't like filling long forms. So I notice that any EA I get, I mean, I got an EA once and I was talking to her. Um, and she said, "Oh, I don't like filling forms." And in my mind, I'm like, "Wait, how did HR? How did this get pass?" So that moment in time is when I knew that I mean, you get what I mean. Surround yourself with
Yes.
people that come to places that you don't like. So if
Okay.
it's PR, I had a marketing lead then that, I mean, she noticed that, man, if you leave me, I'll just be working and just focus on the work. And she's like, no, no, Ifeoma, you always have to show up here, this appointment, you show up here, you do this, you do that. So I think it makes the journey, it makes you make up for, it makes you whole in a way.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. But I have some quick questions I have to ask you. What is the African country that you want to visit this year and why?
Gosh. So I went to Kenya last year and I liked it. South Africa is something that I would like to visit because I don't know. Everybody feels like South Africa is Africa, and South Africa said they're not Africa. So I mean, I would like to see what they have.
What is the most underrated Nigerian food? Okay, but
No,
which one is
eba
it?
soup. Gosh, I like
Eba
it.
soup.
Yes, no.
No, it depends on the soup. It depends on the soup.
Hmm. Bitter leaf soup.
Ah, ah. Okay. How do you look after yourself in your free time?
Gosh, I like okay, I'm a mom and I'm an entrepreneur. I like doing nothing. Just lying down in a white hotel doing nothing with white bed sheets everywhere white and just doing
Ah,
nothing.
ah. Just doing nothing.
Boring. I told you my best times are when I'm not doing anything. Think about it. I have 4 kids,
Okay.
so I'm always doing something.
What has been your most humbling moment in your journey as an entrepreneur?
I think the most humbling moments for me have been when I get feedbacks from a client and say, "Hi, you changed my life." And most
Okay.
times I think it's when it's not about money, it's about maybe something that you said or you
Okay.
did at one point. So it made me very, very intentional about knowing that when you interact with people, you're sowing seeds. And sometimes that might be the only seed that that person needs to stand up.
What's one thing that you would love people to know about you?
One thing that I love people to know about me is that I love what I do.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
on my
so much.
platform. I really appreciate you and do have a nice day. Bye.
You
Today Africa Podcast is a podcast series where we interview African entrepreneurs and professionals and share the stories behind their businesses. In each interview, we ask how they got started, how they grew, and how they run their business today. The stories are inspiring and also provide specific advice and insight into starting a business. By sharing these stories, we want to help others get started.